Welcome to Embrace the Spiritual Podcast. Join friends Michelle and Dawn as they share tips on how you too can open your heart, raise your vibration, and reclaim your sovereignty. Hear what they have experienced and overcome in their spiritual journeys while navigating this expansive spiritual multiverse. Discover how they transform their soul lessons from ordinary into extraordinary.
Follow, subscribe, and share Embrace the Spiritual Podcast on all streaming services, including YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and go to our website, embracethespiritual.com, for bonus content. To book an SRT session with Dawn, visit alchemy-sacredsound.com. To book an SRT session with Michelle, visit energeticembrace.com.
Welcome back. We have another exciting episode. Michelle and I have already been laughing with stories. So we're just going to jump in and start. And Michelle, I know you have lots to tell us about this weekend.
Yes, I'm really proud of myself. I got off my butt and went over to a friend's place. She invited me over to do readings. She had her sisters over and they wanted to do readings. It was the weekend of their mom's birthday, and their mom, of course, has passed. And so she said, Michelle, would you mind coming to do some readings? So I said, great. That day, there was a part of me that said, oh my gosh, why did I commit? And it's not that I didn't want to do these readings. It was just in general, when I make plans, I don't know if other people are experiencing this, make plans and then go that day, oh, why did I make a commitment? And had nothing to do about whatever you're going to, but it happens. And so don't judge yourself, but try to feel into why that's happening. And for me, it was just, I hadn't done readings for a while. So of course, that's part of me that was worried about doing a good job. They're paying, so I want them to get their money's worth. And it all comes down to that worthiness. I know lots of us deep down, if we really ask why this is happening, why do I feel this way? We drill down. There's a lot of self-worth underpinning in some things. So I recognize that. And it's one of those things that I've learned you just have to go do it. Just get up. I got up, I showered, I got ready and went over there. And it was an amazing day. She had warned me that one of the sisters might be a little more skeptical, which is great. It doesn't bother me because I'm still going to get messages for them, whether they believe it or not. So, and she ended up getting some really great messages, had some tears. I'm really glad I did it because it's so easy to say no, just because, we get so busy, even though I'm quote unquote retired, you fill your days. There's always something to do, it seems. And that can be overwhelming. And so I'm really proud of myself for going. And I just wanted to share that message because if you've been having those, you're not lazy. You're listening to your body saying, I want to go do something. But at the same time, still ask the question, why don't I want to do it? Like, is there a really good reason? Maybe there's an energy somewhere that you're just not resonating with, and that's why you don't want to go. Well, that certainly wasn't the case. These were lovely ladies. Their mom and dad came through. It was beautiful. And for me, it was just really a lesson in pushing through. I made a commitment. I'm going. It's going to be great. Those self-worth, kind of issues or concerns that I had about doing a great job. At the end of the day, the messages are going to come through. The channel is always there. And of course, the more you do to clear your system, do your spiritual work, your cleansing, it'll always be there. It just gets clearer versus not as clear of a channel. And you might pick up lower vibration energies. So just go do it.
Beautiful. I love that. And if you have never had a session with Michelle, she's excellent. I mean, I cannot, you've done so much for me. I greatly appreciate her. So I'm here to review books because this week I read 2 books. One was okay. It's called Spiritual Alchemy, How to Transform Your Life by Dr. Christine Page. I like this, and I'm really skeptical because I've read a lot of books and you get halfway through and then it just loses the magic that it created. The only problem I have is with the end. It ends on numerology. Let me see if I can find it, because it gives the breakdown of if you're born on this day, and I never feel that I am fully meant to be part of the, if you're born on this day, like it says, you're humanitarian, loves to travel, philosophy, and esoteric matters. I do not like to travel. Like, I have traveled with Michelle. I love traveling with people, but I do not like it. It is not on my top 10 things fun to do. I don't like philosophy. I think it's people who, and I work with a person who is a philosophy professor. I think they're too much in their head and not enough in their heart. And I have a heart, like, literally my brain turns off when he starts talking about things, and he's does not explain things very well. And so I'm just like, I don't understand what you're saying. And it's not because I'm dumb, because I'm not dumb. I'm quite smart. There are many ways to explain things. He does not speak my language. So, and it says to watch for, observe the needs of the ego so goodness can flow. I don't feel that I come from a place of ego. Like, I do a lot of things where I'm like, that was probably dumb, but because I'm such a giving person, like, like there was a gentleman yesterday, my husband and I were on a walk. He had his flashers on, and he was not pulled over. He was literally in the drive lane. It's not a busy road, so it's not a big deal, but he was close enough that to the road that I thought, did his car, like, what happened? So I knocked, and he wouldn't roll down his window, which is fine. It's dark, and for my safety and his safety, I'm glad he didn't, but he said he was fine, no issues, didn't need anything. So we walked on our way, but I just wanted to make sure, because you don't usually put your flashers on, you usually pull over. So I thought maybe his car just died. Usually that's a sign that my car just does not. So again, if I was in the ego, I would have called the cops and let them handle it, I feel, but I am not. So then the second book that I would like to talk about is called The Bridge Between Two Worlds: A Shaman's View of Schizophrenia and Acute Sensitivity by Odette Night Sky. And I believe she's from Australia. I did a little bit looking about, she only has 2 books. Yeah, it says National Library of Australia. So didn't really find much about her, but I really didn't deep dive. This is just an excellent book. Not even talking about mental illness. Again, if you have mental illness and you're listening to this, please seek somebody who speaks your language and can help you. Conversations that she has had with the people in this book and the suggestions for healing yourself are right in alignment with spiritual stuff, what Michelle and I talk about.
So is that actually an interview? She interviews a bunch of people in that book. Is that?
Not really. It talks about, I'll just read the contents: the pain of being on this planet. Yep, we all know that. Spiritual emergence, some common experiences. How does acute sensitivity manifest? The world of acute sensitivity. And I had an SRT session with somebody who was feeling everything and they should not have. So more shields, more clearing. Obviously, there was stuff going on. When you have an SRT session, you should not feel anything. You should feel protected and feel like you're lightening your load off your soul. So again, high guides, do's and don'ts, protecting the spirit, soul retrieval. It's just common sense stuff that I'm like, oh, that makes total sense. Stuff we don't talk about. And it's also, talking about the transpersonal psychologist view, because obviously she is into this, but also the shaman view of things and how they differ in the way they treat their people. And I just finished, previous to this, 3 shaman books about how they care for their family. If somebody in their family is having mental illness, they feel that they've kind of not failed, but they feel like their purpose is to get this person on the right track. So there is a lot of support. I had read a book about, I can't remember if the child had a fever that was extremely high and then it led to seizures, and helping the child out to the point of extreme headbanging. They had this child tied down to bed because he had grown up, if he was left to his own devices, he would have knocked himself unconscious and bled to death. They ended up getting the state involved, and the state wanted to sue, but the psychologist on the board, because he worked with the tribes, said, no, we're not going to do this. The tribe lived for this child, to get the child through. They did clearings and cleansings, and the state ended up taking the child and doing different things that were not normal for them. So it was like what would you call it? Kind of like Pavlov's dog. If you do this, you get treats. And that's what the child responded to. That's not how the tribes do things. But I thought this is brilliant support system, because a lot of people don't have that family support growing up, and coming from a family that didn't, I can understand where they would, do everything that they could, but then realize we don't know how to deal with this anymore. We've gotten XYZ. And the child might have going on medication. And I believe he was in his teens when he finally went to a facility and was able to function, do minimal care for himself, but obviously was going to have to be in a home system for the rest of his life because of the fevers that had happened. And again, also when you insult the family, and that had happened, when there was insult from the doctor of them not taking care of the child, and the family takes that like, oh, this is not a good working relationship. And I understand. How many doctors or dentists have you gone to and they immediately start out criticizing you? That's not how things are supposed to be in a healing community. We're here to support each other. We can get through this working together. But when you leave an office and you have no protocol of what you're supposed to do next, that is literally the system failing you. And you're not supposed to work with them.
Wow, lots to unpack there. Thank you. So actually, I want to go back to your comment about at the end of that one book, not feeling like the numerology kind of fits you. I don't know if you've got your exact birth time, but I kind of wonder if you straddle two different houses or something in astrology.
Well, that was birthday. So they're both birth on your day. So, but again, we know it's more complicated.
Yeah.
Because I was born at like 7:11 or 7:13. I can't remember. I'd have to go look, but I was definitely, past midnight.
Interesting. Okay. So I want to touch base a little bit on the spiritual alchemy and just give a little more context and description on that in case you're going, what the heck is spiritual alchemy? It's really that process of working our inner transformation, our spiritual enlightenment. That's really what spiritual alchemy is. We're trying to transform things from the current state into a new state. So whether you're purifying, you're aligning your energies, you're raising your vibration, all these things that we're talking about in the podcast, and ultimately you're wanting to continually raise your state of consciousness, your state of being in the present moment. Because when we're in the present moment, guess what? We can slow down time. Dawn and I have both literally done this. I was going to an airport and it was going to be tight on time for me to get there. I had to park. I knew I'd have a long walk in to get my bag checked. And I just asked my team to slow down time, speed up my traveling safely, of course. And I pulled in with time to spare. It was amazing. Like Dawn said in that book, it's talking about the ego. So really we're transforming these things. Fear, we do need our ego for some things. We need to drive. We need to do mechanical things in our work. We need our mind sometimes, that linear side. But what we want to do is where the ego kind of takes over and limits yourself. That's really what it is. I think where the ego starts limiting you, bringing in your programming that is not serving you really. And we're wanting to transform these things into that wisdom, that love, compassion. I know that's been a really big difference over these last few years for me, is being able to observe situations from multiple angles. And I do still have some judgment sometimes. So I just recognize it and try to understand maybe why I'm judging. Because anytime I'm judging something, it's because it's something unsettled within me is reacting to that situation. So when we can ultimately dissolve the ego and allow it to function in what it's meant to function in, instead of replaying those subconscious patterns, those programming, those things that we grew up with culturally, religious, whatever it is, whatever is in your immediate world, when we can start to alchemize that and transform it into something that we just understand. It's not about blaming our parents. I mean, even there's things that I know with my kids, I've said to them, I did the best with what I knew at that time. If I had the knowledge I do now, yes, absolutely, I would have done things completely different. I'm not going to judge myself. However, the caveat I'll put on this is even with things like SRT that Dawn and I both facilitate, we can transform the energies we have around those memories. And because time is not linear, we can see the impact of that transformation of all those discordant energies becoming just integrated into us. without judgment, without any negative aspect. So yeah, I just wanted to chat about that spiritual alchemy.
I agree. We have an ego for a reason, but there's times when people just let it get out of control. And just an example, this weekend, had family members that were just pointing the finger about everything. This person, this person. I'm like, I just don't like this talk. We're on a hamster wheel, and I have stepped off. I don't want to play this anymore. And I reached out to my uncle and I said, are these people always like this? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, if you cannot change yourself, then how are we going to change the system? And that's how it starts. You change yourself, how you interact, how you talk. We've talked about conscious languaging. We've talked about healing. That's what it really comes down to. If you're not working on yourself, then how is humanity going to heal? And I believe it can heal. And it's going to be tough for a lot of people. And that's okay. That is their journey. It's no judgment on me. I love them and I will support them in whatever way that they need, but you got to let it go, because that anger creates an energy that is disharmony in your body. And that disharmony can lead to cancer, and it can lead to other illnesses. And I've talked with my Chinese healer. He says that cancer is often in the body when they've, done surgery. The body has created a separate person in there. So think about how we react to things. Is it really worth getting that upset over? If not, then let it go. So going back to the bridge between two worlds, I do like this because when I was starting out, I wish somebody had told me like what high guides do. And it's pretty much, I read it as your higher self. Your high guides respect your integrity and facilitate your own decision making. Agreed. We're here to learn. They're supposed to help with that and lead us on like there's two paths in the road. Do I make the good choices or do I make the bad choices? Do I really want to have, that really tough fall, or do I want to have learned my lessons and keep going? Humbly acknowledge a force greater than them. And I do feel a lot of people are lacking. And I've been really grateful I've been finding money everywhere. Like on our walks, we find like, even if it's just a little bit, I'm very grateful for it. And, I thank my team because I know that they made it happen. Leave feeling you're loved and it's inspired. And I think that is a lacking in a lot of people's lives. We do have blah days. I have blah days all the time. Kind of this weekend was kind of blah, but I needed it because it was just a very busy work day. Like this week at work was very, very busy. Not able to think, or when I do, scrambling because we had just had so much retail business coming in, which is a nice problem. But at the same time, if I can't breathe or get enough to drink, it is kind of dehydrating. Say that many paths may lead to truth and expand consciousness. That is so true. We have so many paths. I can see, especially doing with SRT, I can see the timelines more vividly now, and the choices that, if you make this choice, this is what's going to happen. If you make this choice, this is what's going to happen. And I think that's really a gift to be able to expand thinking that it's got to be one way to thinking there are multiple choices for this. Provide concisely stated information specific to your situation. We always want that. Playing games is never fun, especially when you're doing energy work and talking to your higher self. Offer you counsel that challenges you and causes you to overcome personal limitations. Again, programs, blocks, helping yourself heal is always a good thing. And that's what your higher self should be doing. Serve those they can serve in a humble, dedicated way. I can't add on that. I have to agree. Have good manners, treat you respectfully, and contact you in right times and places that you are comfortable. So true. There's a time and place for everything. And if you are getting bothered, because I do know people whose supposed teams bother them at inconvenient times. So I do question, like, is it really your team or is it something else? And then higher guides don't claim they know what is best for you. True. They're only here to show us how to heal and give suggestions. It is not their decision. Arrogantly claim they are the ultimate source of wisdom. If something does that, start questioning, does this being thing have my real intention for my highest good?
Yeah, I want to jump in on that one because I think a lot of people, just because they are getting messages, they assume it's from something higher, and it might not be. If there's any judgment in it, or anything you're not doing, anything like that, it is not your higher self talking to you. And sometimes even we place an outside deity, I'll say, religiously speaking, that is the only thing talking to you. Well, you have a higher self. So sometimes people also put those conversations and those messages that they're getting not from their higher self, which I feel kind of disconnects them from that connection, because they just assume it's God talking to them or something else. And it very well might be, but there will be a different energy and vibration to the message between the two. So I just want to add that.
Good point. And I think that comes, say there's only one path and that is their path. I've noticed that with a lot of spiritual people, especially right now, they're discrediting a lot of people and saying, oh, my way is the only way. Well, why can't we have multiple ways? And then it says, speak in spiritual cliches that have little specific content. I notice a lot of people will say the same thing over and over 3 times in a row. And I have a hard time listening to that. I don't know where we let these people have so much authority repeating themselves. And it's just not once, it's multiple times in the conversation, kind of like on a loop. And just one of the examples I always hear is like, oh, we're heading for awesome, what is it, Jasera or Nisara. A lot of people mention financial stuff that's going to happen. And I'm always questioning, why would this happen now? Why hasn't it happened before? Or if you invest in XYZ, it'll do XYZ. Again, why can't we just work hard and meet the right people and have it work that way? The old-fashioned way. Flatter you and support you in negative emotional, mental, and physical patterns. Agree completely. I have seen firsthand a lot of spiritual neglect happening with these so-called spiritual leaders. There's a lot of stuff going on. If you look, people getting arrested for not doing good things, and people might say, oh, they were targeted, but I'm sorry, when you're dealing with drugs and spiritual stuff and not making sure that person is safe. And that's my first thing when I am doing. If you are not feeling good, if you're not feeling safe, let's get you to a safe place.
Exactly right. When you're talking about medicine, people going on medicine journeys and things like that, that is where discernment needs to be dialed in. Do not do a medicine journey unless it's someone you know and trust, or somebody that you know and trust has maybe done a journey with somebody. So I just wanted to add that, because where people they think that they're going to get the answers because they go on a medicine journey. If you haven't done your work, so to speak, your spiritual work, guess what's going to come up in that journey? It's not going to be fun stuff. It's going to be mucky and gross, and you're not going to get some profound message. So you do have to do the work. So I just wanted to throw that in about the medicine.
Agreed. And I've also been told, if there's a white guy doing the plant medicine, run far away. And that was from somebody who was indigenous, and I'm like, that's so true. You are in charge of you. If you cannot have that integrity, you have to start saying, what is wrong with what I'm doing, especially since people are dying. And that is scary. Not for me, because I've always never been drawn to go on a journey or try ayahuasca, and people always say, well, you're missing out. But I see people, and this started early on. I was friends with this gentleman who did lots of pot, to the point where, they say when you're doing lots of pot, you gain weight, but then there's a point where you're doing so much that you can't function without it, and then you start getting anorexically skinny. And we had plans to hang out. Because he was so high, I never got a phone call. So that's fine. It's on him, not me.
And I've heard people who are mediums say that it helps them connect better that's not true. You're connecting to something, but it's not of a higher vibration. And you're exactly right with shamanism. It's those kind of people that are doing the medicine journeys, right? Either indigenous tribes, shamans, and very few indigenous shamans will train people that are not indigenous. So if they are not indigenous, not saying they're not the only ones that can, but just use your discernment. That is the biggest message around that. If you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. I've been offered several times to do it, and I just check in with myself. Is this right for me at this time? And it's a no. I feel it doesn't automatically give you a heightened spiritual awareness, because if the person facilitating it does not have a contained, high vibration, contained energy group, you will get low vibration energies coming in. And when you do the plant medicine, you are wide open. That's That's why they do it, is you're wide open to receive messages. So it does not serve you if you have somebody that doesn't know how to hold space for that, however many people are in your group. So discernment, 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 we'll hammer that one in because that's a big one. Even when you're looking at these books and different teachers, Dawn just doesn't go, oh yeah, I'll read this and this and this. She has discernment when she's looking at this book and say, yeah, part of it resonates and part of it doesn't. And that's okay. Because I think to find one author that everything hits bang on, you're going to pick up the pieces that you need to learn or maybe to hear in that moment. So have discernment, do your muscle testing. When you're in a bookstore, hold the book up against your chest, ask if this is right for you. If you're going back, it's a no. If you're going forward, it's a yes. I've done that in a bookstore. It doesn't matter if you think you look ridiculous. It's deciding whether you want a book that's going to actually help you. And consuming lots of information, no matter where it comes from, isn't always a good thing. You have to be able to learn something, integrate it, learn more, integrate it. So it's a little bit of process. So this isn't 0 to 100. All of a sudden I'm enlightened.
Exactly. And I did read a book. Now that we were talking about, white people, he was a white guy and a indigenous tribe. We're trying to teach him, but then it ended up being like it got lost in the getting high translation because they were going from one spot to one spot and he just didn't have the vocal vocabulary of the tribe and the spiritualness that they were supposed to be learning. And I can understand why a lot of indigenous do not invite people like me or others because we have not been ingrained or taught the messages. And it really, like halfway through, I'm like, I can't read this book because the message was beautiful, talking about the tribe and the learning and the healing that they do for the land. But then it got lost on we're doing peyote again, we're doing it again, we're doing it again. And I'm like, where is the messages that you're supposed to be? So I stopped reading it. But there are others that do resonate. Flatter you and support you in a negative emotional, mental, and physical patterns. Again, that can speak loudly even to ourselves. What kind of inner dialogue do we have for ourselves? Are we eating to feed emotional healing that has not happened? Working out to the point of passing out because we're not happy with ourselves? Anorexia, bulimia, there's just so much out there. Again, if you have mental health issues, please seek a professional. We're not talking about people with mental health issues should be listening to us. We're talking about people, this is what your team does. We're not here to give any psychological advice. This is just us talking and nothing else. Try to create a following for themselves. I see a lot of people do this. And I realize that Michelle and I are on social media. I don't care if I have one follower or a million. It does not matter to me. I just need to talk. And Michelle is my co-partner, and that's what I'm doing.
And that's why Dawn and I created this. Even if you reach one person gets a message and works on themselves, that's awesome. That is awesome. But Dawn and I have both been with, teachers that push for more people, push. And for what? That's an ego thing. If you are automatically pushing for more people, to me, that's ego. And, there's a balance of you're pushing something on social media because you want to get clients. I think there's just a balance, and just make sure that you're doing it from an ethical perspective, that you're genuinely wanting to help people, not just pad your bank account.
I have to agree because I see a lot of people who push. We're doing this, we're doing that. I have to get the likes, I have to get the views. We have to talk about this on this day because of XYZ. And it stops resonating with me. It's like you get a big bang and they have to go bigger. And then it starts sounding like, okay, now you're just making stuff up. Have bad manners intrude on you at awkward times or abuse your body in any way. We have experienced this when we've gone on a retreat. We had somebody who was not in their heart. And the meals were, when you're spending a lot of money, you should feel like you've eaten. And I actually had to bring my own food because the meals were so not fulfilling that I would be ready to pass out. And going long stretches of time, especially going hiking and waiting like 4 to 5 hours in between meals when you got up at really early to let people eat is wrong. So it really, please people, use your discernment. I learned my lesson. I had never been on any retreats before, and it was fine in the beginning. There were no warning signs, but as it continued, it got like, this is not right.
It became so obvious. So if you're following anybody, it might be right for you in that moment. And as you go along, you can feel the dissonance in the vibrational resonance. And that's exactly was like so obvious that we couldn't continue to participate because that would honestly feed what was going on.
Right. And they're also, if you're paying thousands and you know they're making 10,000 or plus dollars, and there is not enough bathrooms for everybody, or you have to co-shower. I mean, there were times when Michelle and I would be like, okay, we're going to XYZ, you brush your teeth, I'll go to the bathroom, and then we'll switch and like get dressed. And it was just, no, that's not how, if you pay a lot of money to go on a retreat, it should not feel like you're in a college dorm room.
No, it was interesting. Put it that way.
We got to know each other very well, and this is why she's my friend forever. Tell you that you are the only pure soul that can save this earth. And I think that is so true. There's so many people that will tell you and be like, I'm the only one who can do this. No. And I tell this all the time. You can do what I do. I just chose this modality. I want you to heal. I want you to be able to clear yourself. I want you to be a better person and be able to talk to your team and flourish in your life. And I wish more people would want that instead of creating this addictive system. So know your healer, know yourself, make better choices.
Yeah, you don't have to follow somebody or go on retreats with someone just because. Definitely want to, sometimes I guess it's fun to go on a retreat with a friend, but definitely don't just because. I'm actually looking at taking a trip to Peru next year with a group, but I'd be traveling probably by myself, maybe with somebody else going down there. But I really felt into it. In the past, I probably would have looked at someone and intellectually said, oh, these are things that I want to learn, which is great because some of those early conferences and things that I went to, that's what helped me not even fine tune. That's what helped me really expand my spiritual base. And it was needed at that time. Would I go back to those same retreats now? Honestly, no, because I've moved beyond what they have to offer me. And I'm not saying that from an egotistical perspective, but if I have to feel like I have to lower my vibration to be in an environment, I'm not going to do that. I love myself too much to put myself in that situation. And Peru is just one of those places that's kind of been curious for me. Obviously, they have Machu Picchu, and that would be one of the places that we're going to. Of course, not hiking the whole thing because that takes a long time and a lot of athletic abilities. And, when you're in a group, that's just not something that's going to happen. So just really feel into a decision when you're looking at trips or looking at retreats with people. Don't make the decision in the moment. If at any time they say you have to sign up now or you'll lose a spot, then it's probably not for you anyways. And so if you just sit with it, if it's meant to be, it's going to have a spot open for you. Ask your team, hey, can you hold a spot for me while I make a decision? It'll happen. And that's all you have to do.
So true. And another awesome subject in this book was protecting the spirit self, which we really should be protecting ourselves, because when you're protecting your spirit, you're also protecting your emotional and physical. Protection is not about warding off evil spirits. Protection is about making your life's force stronger. When a negative vibration enters your energy field, the imbalance gets pulled into balance by the power of your own inner glow. During my acutely sensitive time, it seemed that the art of protection was one of the most difficult things to obtain. I found that whenever a confronting situation appeared, I would assume I was creating a protection around me for the fear I felt so deeply. Finally, I realized I tried to protect myself from parasitic entities. What I was actually doing was increasing my fear, which of course they fed off of. My spirit would fragment and my aura would be wide open for hosting, and I soon would turn into a local sponge for everyone's leftover garbage. How true is that? How many times have we thought, oh, I'm strong, but in reality, we have been so scared. And I remember feeling so scared because I was a very sensitive child. I had lots of things happening, especially at night, when it would get dark, lights flickering, my sheets and my bedding would be pulled off my bed. I would literally hold on. Things would feel like they were on my bed, and we didn't have any animals growing up. So this was extremely frightening to me. And I slept with a nightlight on. I never saw anything. I wish I could have had the conversations I needed to with my parents, but they would have been like, oh, it's your overactive imagination. They didn't believe in that stuff. And again, I now keep an open conversation with my children. If you are watching scary movies, if you're doing XYZ, make sure you put a shield around. And you can do it when you're driving. I do a lot of shielding, especially when driving, because you never assume the person that you are driving with is in their right mind. I've seen too many aggressive drivers, too many people make assumptions, bad behavior, again, people driving with their egos. And this also is for, when I'm working, it happens a lot as well. The way people react to their children, crying children don't bother me, but when there's a point when the crying should end. And sometimes it doesn't. And I am grateful for the parents who take their children out of the store and say, I'll be right back. I will pay for my purchase when, they've settled down. And I appreciate that. My girls never did that. And now I'm so glad that you would not let us do, again, kids want everything, that it's how they are. And if you don't nip it early in toddler stage, it only gets worse. And I've seen so many older children throwing fits. Again, not all can be contained because there are behavioral issues, but there's usually a solution to everything. So just be mindful of what's going on. If something doesn't feel right, protect yourself. Again, when this is happening, I try to send love to the children in the position that they're in. And if there's bad driving, I just send love to the person and hope that they're going to be okay, because that's all I can do. And that's all that's in my control.
Well, you never know who's racing to have final moments with the parent who's passing away. And sometimes when we have that road rage, we're displacing frustration onto someone else when we don't know the situation. Sometimes people are just really bad drivers and, jerks on the road. Yes, that's totally it. But sometimes if somebody's, wanting to pass you and because they're like on a mission somewhere, you never know. Maybe they have a baby being born. So just have that compassion for people. Thank you, Dawn, for sharing all of those 2 awesome books on our website, embracethespiritual.com. We can add links to the book titles so that if you want to find them for yourselves, if something resonated in that, we'll certainly provide those links for you to look at these books. Hopefully you can find them somewhere. So we'll wrap up with this spiritual alchemy and how you resource your information for that transformation of your energy. Use your discernment. Make sure it's for your highest good. Don't feel pressured to do something just because somebody outside of us says that's the way to do it or this is the only way it is. Guess what? You're the one that's right because you're doing things right for yourself. You're the only one living on your timeline. Make it count. Follow, subscribe, and share Embrace the Spiritual podcast on all streaming services, including YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and go to our website, embracethespiritual.com for bonus content. To book an SRT session with Dawn, visit alchemy-sacredsound.com. To book an SRT session with Michelle, visit energeticembrace.com.
Infinite love and gratitude. Thank you for joining us.